We are back again. Welcome back to American Perspective this Friday with Patriot Mom 007, Noél Roberts here in Arizona. And we just getting back today from a nice little, it was an event vacation, but nonetheless, it was a semi-vacation because we were in San Diego and that's where everybody goes to vacation. So I'm counting that as mine for this summer. But I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, just to share what we did. Robert, who is, doing all the magic in the back always, he was there with me, and it was a really nice event for a really good group of people. More of that we'll talk about because it is Memorial Weekend. This weekend, Monday is Memorial Day, and we've got events also happening in Arizona for that special occasion. We'll also talk about that later. But first, we will jump into the news. So there's just too much. I don't even know if we would ever have enough time to ever discuss what's happening because the world's on fire. And that poor couple, this is not the news story I was doing, but I did want to say that poor couple who was brutally murdered in the streets the other night, coming out of the museum, shot by that maniac radical extremist. It is a tragedy. We are so sorry that that happened. Of course, that was just, I don't even know how to address it, honestly. Insane, from who could do that ever perspective. But I'm glad Pam Bondi has come out swinging. I'm glad she's looking for the death penalty. And I can't imagine that there'd be any punishment other than that would be fitting for what that person did to that young, beautiful couple starting their lives out. So I also do want to talk about a couple other things because this is something, some of these things I always think get overlooked. They're not as popular as stories, and sometimes they don't talk about all the money, the shell games, the lining their pockets that we know is happening. But Lee Zeldin, who was, representative before, he actually ran for governor against Kathy Hochul, didn't get that spot, unfortunately, but now he's been appointed to the EPA by President Trump, so he's in the cabinet. He is definitely a very strong conservative, moderate, fiscally responsible in a big way, and every other way. So this is an exchange between Lee Zeldin and Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. If you haven't seen him, he's an interesting fellow. And we'll find out why he takes this strong position that we're going to hear him go in with Lee Zeldin. And this is, I think it's 2 minutes. It is 2:23. So just bear with me on this. It's kind of fun to watch. And then we're going to let you know why the senator is so upset about this circumstance.
I conduct an individual review of everything, and that concept doesn't work for you.
When did you conduct an individualized review
every
of
single
781
because
grants?
We have a zero tolerance
policy. Will you show me your schedule?
Dollars. We inherit something. You don't care about wasting money.
Will you show me your schedule?
You don't care about wasting money, but the Trump administration does, Senator.
Will you show me your schedule?
Our schedule's publicly released. We don't put on the schedule every single moment of the day.
Will you show me your schedule to prove your assertion that you did individualized review of 781?
I'm under oath telling you that I was reviewing this stuff and working on it almost every single day.
And the problem
because
with
when I was before this committee, I was asked by Senator Ricketts, if confirmed, would I immediately make this a top priority to go through all the grant funding going through EPA to make sure that we are cracking down on every waste, every aspect of abuse, because I have to come back here in front of Senator Ricketts today. And even though you don't care about wasting tax dollars, Senator Ricketts does.
And I'm
going to do my job because the American public cares about us not wasting tax dollars.
And the problem with your assertion here today is that it is belied by your own employees' sworn statements in court and by the decision of the Department of Justice to admit that what you say isn't true.
You're not grasping the fact that we would have multiple employees looking at these grants. That concept just escapes you like that's even a possibility.
The only thing about that is that that's not true.
You don't care about 99% of this story.
That's not true according to your own employees'
You're not grasping
testimony.
I don't know what to say to you. You're insisting on the fact
I'm insisting on the facts. That's exactly what I'm insisting on. I'm insisting on the facts, and I now have three different versions of the facts, including Department of Justice lawyers
are working on this every single day
admitted in court that what you're saying now is not true.
We're not going to waste dollars just because you insist on EPA lighting taxpayer dollars on fire.
That's right.
The American taxpayers, they put President Trump in office because of people like you. They have Republicans in charge of the House and Senate because of people like you, because you don't care about 99% of this story. You don't want me to go through the list of all the evidence of waste and abuse.
No, what I want you to do,
in conflicts of interest.
What I want you to do,
unqualified recipients. You don't care about
what I want you to do.
So I know that was heated, right? We don't often see that. If you do watch C-SPAN 1 or 2, that's the House and the Senate live. I always recommend that that's what you watch because that's real time happenings. They can't doctor that. It's just going on the live stream, and like we are today. And so he's bringing that up to Senator Whitehouse. They're grilling him about this because, of course, those who are the culprits of the waste, fraud, and abuse definitely don't want anyone else looking into it. So Senator Whitehouse, interesting that he was so vehement about this situation and trying to shame Lee Zeldin. By the way, the Department of Commerce and EPA and the Department of State has awarded in grants to, and then we're going to bring up this number 2 graphic, which is Senator Whitehouse and his lovely wife, who happens to sit on the Ocean Conservancy board, and a part of that organization is an NGO, and they have given her $2.7 million of more than that, really, all said and done. But that's somewhere. His wife is the recipient of that. So it's no wonder that the senator can take that questioning to Mr. Zeldin, because he probably appreciates thoroughly the grant money he and his wife have been receiving all those years. I'm guessing probably not appropriately. And that's drying up. So it's hard to line your pockets with a slush fund when they are cutting off the slush fund across the board. So, we like to thank Lee Zeldin. We like to thank all of those who are looking into the Doge efforts. Whether you like Elon or drive the cars or not, is not relevant to the fact that they're all criminals and they've been stealing money by the bazillions forever. I say bazillions because that's going to be the next metric. The money's just like it's paper and they're just going to keep printing it. So we're not going to have any measure of that in a while, but we can measure where it's been going, luckily, with the exposure that they've brought to that situation in all these agencies over the years that have been funneling the money to their personal organizations, charities, NGOs, and their bank accounts. So we just want to say thanks for doing that for us, and hopefully they'll keep finding money, because ultimately it is the taxpayers that are losing out, and that probably isn't okay. I mean, it's not okay for me. Probably not okay for you guys either. So we also, so that's the news. There's so much other news. We can't cover it all. And I do highly recommend you catch up, because a lot's been going on in the world if you have not been catching up. We have a guest on that I'll be bringing on in another couple of minutes. And he's going to actually talk about some of the things we've been seeing over the years, kind of from his perspective, which we like to bring the different perspectives here. And also, I do want to remind you, all of his information will be in my descriptions at Patriot_Mom007 on all the channels. So if you would like to connect with my guest later, look him up and see how you can get involved or learn from him and his resources. Please find that information in the descriptions. It's all up there now. Actually, we'll have it on the screen later for you. And I did want to touch on being in San Diego this last weekend for the Armed Forces the Armed Services Day Gala, and retired Captain Joe John from the Navy hosted this. He has been with the Combat Veterans for Congress PAC. He actually is a founder with Barry Goldwater Jr. They worked together on it, and Barry was over there as well this weekend. Here's Joe John. This is at the end of the night. So he, I don't know, he's an interesting fellow. We had never met. He He was so busy at the beginning of the event, we didn't have a lot of time to meet each other. But at the end of the event, he invited me with his nephews who were in town to sit with him, learned a lot more about him and his services dedication to his organization. They did pass the torch on to a new chairman at this event over the weekend, but it was really primarily to honor our brave men, our women, our wounded warriors. We had several there, and Medal of Honor recipients. This group here, Veterans Legal Center, they're an amazing group. They help veterans in the legal ways that they may need, and I highly recommend you look them up. I will have all those links also in the descriptions. But these guys came, they sat with me. We're going to put some of the interviews out later, and there's a little bit of live stream you can catch from the ceremony itself on my channel. So I do check that out. There were some amazing speakers, but I wanted to highlight this group, the Veterans Legal Center. And then here's Congressman Darrell Issa. Ran into him. He was a speaker there also, and his message is on that ceremony live stream if you go want to check that out on my channels. And he was gracious to sit with us. I'd not met him before, learned a lot. He actually was military, served our country, and so he's a very big supporter of this group. And the Combat Veterans for Congress, they help get gentlemen who have served our country in the most heroic way into government positions, help them, reach Congress if that's their goal, so they can fight from within for our country as well. And here we have Mr. Hidalgo. He actually ran for elected office. He's not in, but I think he's going to probably reappear. And in the back there, we have one of our Medal of Honor recipients there on the right, and War Rhino on the left, directly behind me. He also sat for an interview. We'll share that with you later too. And then we have who else did we see there? Oh, there's War Rhino. So yep, he gives a great interview, and he might have some elected official running candidacy announcements coming up in the near future too. We'll be keeping up with that. And then we also saw, here's another one of our Medal of Honor recipients. These gentlemen are amazing. They were so just full of energy and engaging, the most warm people you ever want to meet. Actually, all of the people there were, and very welcoming to all of us. And then we finally, at the end of the night, we ran into these two Marines, and they're both gunny sergeants. And on the right at the corner is Leah McSweeney, and the other gentleman is Martin Lopez. They're actually going to join us on June 6th for our D-Day show. We'll be talking more about our veterans, our heroes who protect our country, whether they're here, there, or in other capacities, maybe in Congress, helping us from within, protect us from the enemy, right? That's kind of what they do. That's who they are. And they live and they breathe it. And you see it when you meet them. It's very obvious that that's their life goal, is just to protect others. So we always want to thank them. It is Memorial Weekend, but we thank them all the time, not just on the holidays. I especially appreciate that. My uncle was in the Korean War, and I just find it, hero might be a strong word, some would say, but I just find it just heroic that people that you don't know, if you think about this, will fly across the seas where they don't know anyone, leave their families, leave their children, leave everything they know, their jobs sometimes, to risk their lives for you, who they've never met. I just don't know how that is anything but heroic or extraordinary. So has to be said all the time, because a lot of people still don't believe that's true. And I'm here to remind you that is 100% true. So we also want to thank Barbara Beach. She actually gave me the invite to join them out there for the weekend. She's with weserve.com. You can check them out, and radtv.com. So thank you so much, Barbara. We appreciated being there with you, Robert and I, and the opportunity to meet those amazing people. So we have still a big show to go. I mean, I could talk forever, but you don't want to hear any more from me. You want to hear from one of my guests. That's why I do the shows, is to bring guests on that have amazing resources you may not otherwise have heard about. And it's, part of our obligation. If we're going to be helpful, it's to help others. And I don't know how else to do that better than to these amazing people I get to meet through other amazing people I happen to know. CJ actually was on my show a few weeks ago. She and Amy Shafford there with Book It CJ, and they brought my next guest, It's Reverend Dr. Robert Schuller, actually. And he's a renowned pastor. He's an author and a motivational speaker. He's best known for his leadership on the internationally broadcast Hour of Power. With 17 books to his name, including the bestseller, Walking in Your Own Shoes, Dr. Schuller has dedicated his life to spreading hope and empowering people to overcome challenges through faith and possibility thinking. So we are looking forward to hearing all about all of that. And I'd like to welcome to the show today, American Perspective, for the first time, Dr. Robert Schuller. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Noél, for allowing me to be on your program. I appreciate it.
Yes, well, I've heard a lot about you. I've read a lot about you. And so there's so many parts of the conversation we could, pull in. I do want to start though. We're still hearing, COVID was a problem and health-wise, especially even post health, it was a problem initially for all those we lost, but people don't realize that's not it. That's not the end of that. And what did have a guest on a couple weeks ago too. Her son is vaccine injured, and I wanted to start with this because I know your son, you have a strong position on the vaccines because of what happened to your son with the older, childhood vaccines we were all giving our kids because they said they were safe. And so why don't you tell us about that? Because I'd like to start there and remind people that this is really a problem from what they have done and why we're still involved in bringing this to light.
Well, my son, when he was 2 years old, he's my youngest son. I have four kids. He was vaccinated, and it was either the MMR or the DTaP. I'm not sure which one. It really doesn't matter. The fact is, he got vaccinated. His legs swelled up. He started crying and wouldn't stop crying for a couple days. That was followed up by chronic ear infections and asthma. We took him to the emergency room twice, blue, and we were scolded in the emergency room saying, "You got to bring him in faster." It's like, well, I mean, we brought him in here as soon as we could, and we did that several times. Then his pediatrician put him on prophylactic antibiotics, and and said we had to take everything out of his bedroom. So we basically turned his bedroom into like a hotel, a hospital room, just all sterile. And we're doing this, and we're giving him these antibiotics in hopes that it will not only clear his ear infection but keep him from getting more. And we're going, this doesn't feel right. Putting him on antibiotics for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, he's got this asthma. And someone suggested, why don't you take him to a chiropractor? And I didn't have any history with chiropractors. I thought they were quackopractors. And my wife, she had scoliosis as a child, so she had some history with it, and she took him there immediately. And I just said, whatever. Well, he started weaning off his antibiotics. He never had another asthma attack. His ear infections cleared up, and he hasn't had any medicine or any vaccinations ever since. And I have a similar story with sinus infections. I could keep going on how our lives were completely changed. And because of his vaccine injury, we started supporting a woman by the name of Barbara Loe Fisher. And I consider her the godmother of vaccine freedom. And that's what we want. We want informed consent. That's what she was all about, is informed consent, meaning here are the dangers by vaccinating your children. And you need to be informed, and then you have to have the freedom to make that consent. Well, that all changed in, I think it was 2017 or 18. And as a result of that, in the state of California, and there's 5 other states in the nation where you do not have any choice whether you're going to vaccinate your child or not. Not only do they not inform you, but they demand you get the vaccination. And so I took a couple, I love your title, Patriot Mom, right? I took these Patriot moms, 3 of them, to Washington, D.C., get this, in February of 2020. And the idea was to lobby our congressmen and other people in DC that the goal of the pharmaceutical industry was to create mandatory vaccines, not only in the 5 states, but all the states, so that, and then from there, all adults. so that the entire nation is vaccinated and
Right.
fully vaccinated. That was their goal. Never in a million years did we conceive that they had a much different plan.
Right.
And the plan, of course, was mandatory vaccines for COVID in the entire nation. But so we were ahead of the ballpark and ahead of the whole thing when it comes to vaccinating
The
people
kids. Yeah, and
and
those five states I wanted to mention too are California, which shouldn't be a surprise, because they
we
force
call it
everything down your
California,
throat.
but that's okay.
What's that? What's that? What about California?
We call it California.
Exactly. Yes. And then Connecticut, Maine, Mississippi, and West Virginia. I mean, it kind of does surprise me that I guess Mississippi and West Virginia went this way. But is this something that you see that they're going to be able to try to reverse? Or are these states done? Are
They
these?
are being reversed. Uh,
Oh,
yes, it is. It is happening. And I think I don't think the focus is so much on a state by state anymore as much as it is on a federal level. That
right.
because the feds will, I believe, thanks to Robert Kennedy Jr.,
Yep.
that the feds will make some kind of a statement of informed consent and no mandatory vaccines. Because if you stop and think about it, there is nothing more sacred to your freedoms as an individual than your own body. And if the government has the ability to just inject you with whatever they want, you are nothing more than a farm animal
That's right.
and
That's
your
right.
livestock. And it's imperative for us in our freedom, and you're clearly a patriot, and you're clearly are interested in freedom, and this is one of the most primary freedoms we have. But the bigger issue beyond this is freedom in general, which is why I wrote the book God Always Wins. He's definitely winning this battle. I started this battle back in 1989 after we dealt with my son's issue. And we've been dealing with it, and Barbara Lowe Fisher and then Del Bigtree and the
Yeah,
Informed Consent Action Network. And we've been supporting these institutions and fighting this battle, like I said, taking people to DC to lobby vaccine freedom. But the bigger issue is the whole woke agenda,
right.
which is based upon scientism, which is the manipulation of science. It's not science, but the manipulation of science in order to control the masses. And that's what this is all about, this whole vaccination thing, and not having a freedom to choose not to vaccinate. It is manipulated science. They manipulated the science so that they had the ability to proclaim it as science because it hasn't been studied, it
Right.
hasn't been
Fully
safety
like
tested.
vetted or approved, really, right? They have, there's never been a full approval. Well, it's COVID. I mean, not the other ones. Of course, some would say some vaccines, and even Bobby Kennedy Jr. recently did say, in the hearing that, you do have to make the decisions. We're not advocating don't ever take a vaccine. But if you feel that it's not healthy for your family, your children, it's certainly within you, should be within your right to decide. It's about the decision, like Dr. Schuller says. And so that is why we want to bring this up, is that we don't want people to forget what they did make a lot of families do, whether it was guilting them or because of the school system, or even the adults, even who were forced vaccinated for their jobs and who lost their lives. And so, let alone chronic illness caused, my other guest last week, Krista Bourne, her son, developed autism, but severe autism, very severe, her only son, her only child. And so I know you have other children. And when that happened with your son, I think you decided against vaccinating the other kids. How, being in California, that's got to be a problem, raising the
Well, when
kids.
our children were young, it wasn't a problem. We had a philosophical exemption. Now that my children are having children, that philosophical exemption is not an option. So they have one option of homeschooling, and I
Hmm.
have two of my children who still live in California, and they're homeschooling. I have two other children who moved out of state so they could send their kids to public school. And so I have one that moved to Utah and the other one moved to Florida. So that's the way they chose to resolve the issue. So, so I think that's what it boils down to. We still have the freedom of movement, and yet the globalists want to restrict our freedom of movement, and we see that taking place in again the manipulation of science focused on global warming, carbon emissions, and zero carbon. It's all about the restriction of us to be able to fly and move and go where we want to go. And
That's right.
again, that's how the globalists are going to control the population and control the world, because that is their goal.
Yes, it is. And you see with Bobby Kennedy now and Dr. Casey being appointed into
Yeah.
her role, are you more, she's great. Actually, I put something out about her. I heard her. She's great, I'll tell you. Good for them for finding some really valuable people this time around. So do you're hopeful then, I assume, for the younger, your grandkids and going forward, that do you think they're going to be able to get things in place? That protected mechanisms, I guess, for parents going forward? Is that something that they're looking at, or is that something you're working towards with them?
Uh, I am very hopeful for the future of this world because, first and foremost, God always wins. That's the whole purpose of the book, and the subtitle is "Divine Liberation from the Gods of the Woke,"
Yep.
and that's because it starts with, and globalization starts with the killing of God, the one God, the true God who created heavens and earth, and then they can create their pantheon of scientism or wokeness in order to control the masses, control us. And so what I do in this book is I share how we defeat this globalization, this wokeness, and that's what it's all about. As long as we can keep freedom, and then we're continue to win this battle. And I'm very hopeful, especially when I look at the next generation and what's coming up in the world.
And
If you
which part
want
of
to,
California are you in? Because I know some are less restrictive than others.
so I'm in probably the least restrictive county in California. I'm in
Great.
Orange County. It's still a bastion of freedom. We have a huge harbor here, Newport Harbor, with thousands of boats moored in it. And while when Trump was running for office, it seemed like once a month we'd have a boat parade that would go
Right.
on forever. And all the Trump flags are flying and everything about freedom and it was just really fun to participate in that and watch it. So we live in a little conclave, but even here we have University of Irvine, and the University of Irvine is in right smack dab in Orange County, and it is as blue can get. They
Right.
had I could go on telling stories about that,
Well,
but
you mentioned the boat parades. Actually, Barbara Beach, who I thanked earlier for the invite over to San Diego, she actually had organized some of those as well over there in your area. So I don't know, maybe you'll run into, maybe they'll keep doing them. They might as well. Now we could have celebratory boat parades, right?
yeah,
Instead of get him
exactly.
into office again,
Well,
boat parades.
since Trump got into office, we've just been overwhelmed with all the good news. It's like every day is Christmas Day. What do we have
A
today?
100%. It is, I know. So we do at the end of the show, we do a MAGA minute with Carolyn Levitt. She does our wrap for us. And it's funny because I keep saying, I don't know if they're going to ever run out of a whole laundry list of things they've done every 7 days. I feel like they probably would, just from a common sense numbers perspective. But then I also realized that it's him and Trump, and he doesn't stop. So I suppose if he sets the pace at the beginning for X, Y, or Z, there's no way he goes below that bar at any time because he's already set his own pace publicly, right? That's what so I feel like there's going to probably be a MAGA minute for the entire 4 years, every single 7 days. So we have a lot more to look forward to for sure. I did, since you brought up young, adults at the college level out there.
Yes.
I know that there was that Harvard poll that they revealed for the first time in years, the voters 18 to 29 years old are walking away from the Democratic Party, completely, which we are happy to see that sanity is returning to the next generation for sure. And that support among this age group that said plummeted 23% down from 42%. That's quite a big, steep jump down. And then, so I wanted you to mention a little bit about your thoughts on that, just because we're going to move into the other section of your life, the Reverend side also, because I want to cover the inspirational part. That's also very nice to provide people these days. So we definitely want to get into that. So let's get some of this stuff out of the way. Um, uh, and uh, and give me your thoughts about what's happening on these college campuses, and then with this shift that we know is taking place.
Well, Charlie Kirk has been the forerunner and the leader in making this possible. He goes onto the university campuses and he starts debating all these people and sharing with them the history and the truth and what's going on. And they just can't they just have to kind of throw their shoulders up and just go, he's got a point. I mean, they're young, so their minds are still pliable, and yet they have been indoctrinated into this wokeism, which actually, the foundation of wokeism actually goes back to the 30s with the Frankfurt School in Germany was made up mainly of Jews. And so you know what happened to the Jews in Germany in the
Yes.
30s. So they came to the United States and they settled at Columbia. And from there, they continued their woke ideology, which is nothing more than communism, because the basis of woke ideology is equality. Everybody gets equal. So it's equal sports events. We don't have a first place winner. We have a participation trophy for everybody.
Right.
We, and it's equal, meaning no pain. Nobody has any pain. Everybody lives pain free. We don't if there's somebody who's got too much money, we take from them, give to the people who don't have any money. So all they do is tear those who are doing a good job down to the lowest level, ultimately to the lowest level, until everybody is equal,
But not
equal
equal to
low,
them, beneath them, of course.
equally at the bottom.
Yeah,
And
they
that's
never want to
for a
be, they
reason.
don't want to be equalized. They want everybody else just to be below them. And then they're the top tier. There's always a top tier. Like, I mean, this is the way of the world. And whether you love capitalism or a country, the way it runs, or communism, I mean, there's always a top tier people, regardless of the system you think is the best system, even the dangerous ones like the communistic side of it, when they're burning, cities down and they think that that's progress and taking our statues down, which seems silly. I mean, when you say it like, oh, big deal, they'll put another statue up. But this is our history, and this is what founded America, where we are, where some of us chosen to live here, and others come on purpose. And so we do want to preserve those things. It's important. But the Charlie Kirk you mentioned too. I work Turning Point USA is here in Phoenix, and I do their America Fest every year in December, 4-day event. I don't know if were you here in Phoenix this December? Did I miss you? Did you come over for that?
No, I
Okay, okay, good.
was
I'm glad I didn't miss you. I thought, oh my
I've
gosh, if
known
I missed you,
Charlie
I'd be
Kirk for
so
a
sorry.
long
I'd
time. We have a
apologize.
mutual friend, and
Yes, with CJ. And so Charlie's been amazing. We couldn't be more proud that he does go to the campuses, because that is where you really need to capture them. And the kids need to be taught that although what they're hearing in the schools about communism and all this equality, but it's not exactly equality. It's the equalization for them who are up here to keep everyone else equal at the bottom across the board. So there's only a few of the oligarchs that Bernie Sanders and AOC, I know you mentioned AOC, I saw in your bio, that they talk about the oligarchy. They are the oligarchy, which is hilarious, hilarious. And they say people don't know what that word is. Basically, they want to be in charge. They want to have all the money in the private jets. And then they want to tell everyone else, to Dr. Schuller's point about vaccines, what to do and when to do it. And if they don't do it, well, then you can't be a member of their society. And that's the bottom line. And we want to stop that, right? I mean, that's the whole thing, is freedom to live our lives the way we think our children should, and our families. And that's up to, the doctor and his family, and you and your family. And you can't let people push you around at all, whether it's the illegal aliens on the streets who are pushing everyone around, all the Americans and the US citizens, because of the open borders for 4 years, or whether it's, tacitly through this vaccine, the circumstance they brought up with COVID to force everybody into this basket that if you don't do this, you can't do anything else. And so we're lucky that, again, the new administration, we have to always keep giving them credit because they're in charge now, thank heavens. And they are turning these issues around for the benefit of us and our grandkids, really, most of all, right? So that's the boat Dr. Schuller and I are no grandkids yet, but
Yeah,
close. So.
exactly. For me, it's grandkids,
It's
100%.
yeah, it's about the
Yeah.
future, right? And what
My
they have
my oldest
choices to
grandchild is
make.
15 and my youngest is 2. I've got 9. And they're
I'm sorry,
all,
did you say nine?
yes, I have
Nine
9
kids?
grandkids. I have 4 kids, 9 grandkids.
Oh, okay, wait, because I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't think, okay, I told you I had a little like audio. It's
Yes,
very light. I could
exactly.
not quite hear him. So I thought you only had the four and okay. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, how are you writing 17 books with all the but even still, how are you writing 17 books even with four kids? Like I had two. That was a handful. So you've been very busy. I know it's been over a lot of years. And then I didn't mentioning all the books you've written. I know a lot of that's come out of your relationship with God, and then your parents actually started you on this path, I think, in a very strong, flight plan, if you will,
Yeah.
to shape your life, right, and who you are. So why don't you tell us about that? I want to hear about their church and how you got
Well,
involved and how that, came through to your life.
Well, coming back a minute to the children and the young people who are leaving the Democrat Party, leaving the communist leans, moving from left to right, you have to realize that the foundation of the left, the foundation of communism, is the elimination of God. That's the first thing they have to do. And the history of this goes all the way back to the 60s when Time Magazine, back in the 60s, maybe you're old enough, maybe you're not old enough to remember that there was a thing called print media that was really popular.
Yes,
It's
I'm that
called
old.
newspapers, and
Yes,
everybody had a newspaper delivered to their door every morning.
that's right.
And then the newspapers were all summarized once a week by Time and Newsweek. And Time Magazine, on the cover of Time Magazine, had 3 words: God is dead. And this was part of the leftists' agenda to destroy God. Then they take prayer out of the schools, Bible reading out of the schools, 10 commandments out of our courtrooms. And today, when you swear, you're just swearing to God, but you don't put your hand on the Bible anymore.
Right.
And this is the progression that has been taking place, leading people away from God, because those who believe in God are going to have a completely different concept of reality than those who don't. So the first set of rules for communism, for totalitarianism, in the removal of our freedom, is to enslave us mentally, and they do that through fear. And if you have a strong sense and an understanding of who God is, then you're not a fearful person, because God's with you, God's going to care for you, and who shall I fear? So what's the most beautiful thing you could ever see is go on YouTube and do a search for Passion 24.
Okay.
Just put Passion 24, and up will come a video that says Agnus Dei, and it's 20 minutes long. And what you'll see is the Mercedes-Benz Arena in Atlanta, Georgia, 40,000 kids, because in order to attend the Passion Conference, you have to be between the age of 18 and 25. These are the kids who didn't get a graduation.
Wow.
These are the kids who didn't get to go to their friends who died from fentanyl overdoses, didn't get to go to their
Yes.
funerals,
Or the grandparents, or yeah,
or grandparents, or anybody's funeral.
or the
They're in COVID.
parents.
These are the kids who were said, you are a virus, and if you do not get this vaccine, you're killing your grandma and grandpa. These are the kids who weren't able to go to prom. They weren't able to finish school. They weren't able to finish their sports. They weren't able to even, in California, they weren't even allowed to go surfing. A guy was, maybe you remember this. He's on a paddle board in the ocean by himself in Santa Monica, and he's arrested.
Yes.
It's this is you can't make this stuff up.
No, it's crazy, literally
And
crazy.
and now this same generation has an attention span of 2 to 3 seconds. You have 2 to 3 seconds before they swipe left. Now, what you're going to do when you see this video, Passion 24, is you're going to see 40,000 kids packed in this arena, and they're not being entertained. They're praying and they're worshiping and singing a cappella, Agnus Dei, for 20 minutes.
Wow.
In the life of a 20-year-old, that is an eternity.
True.
It is an eternity. And it's the most touching thing when you realize these are the kids who've been going through all of this baloney. You know, we had to go through it as adults. We had to go through COVID as adults. But can you imagine doing that as a teen? And through
No,
high
it's
school?
amazing that they are assembling. And I see this all over, actually bringing back colleges back up. We have seen this last year after they shut the churches down. I mean, I do want to move on to the other stuff too, but you're right. This is also important because it still involves our children. And they shut the churches down, of course, with COVID. And to your point, to make people separate and not congregate in fellowship, right? For one message and one word.
And it
And
was
so to see the kids, the revivals and some people say revival is a bad word. Like a lot of people hear revival and they think snakes out of the bag and they think, you know what I mean? They think the
yeah.
tent in the desert, like it's got a bad rap. But the revivals that you see is just like let's just recapture our dictionaries, shall we? Webster's, the
Yeah.
original one with the real words in it, not all the fake words that they make up every day. But they're reviving just people's faith. This is my interpretation. I could be wrong. They're just reviving people's faith in their belief of Jesus and God and that I would say a perfect, scenario. I speak for myself. And so it's good to see that it was happening across the board. And I pulled that up though. Passion 24, I pulled it up already. I'll take a look at it when we're done. But it's just an amazing testament to how important they say it's not important. They say it's not true. They say it didn't happen that way to create their universe. And so believe what you will, when you see all these people come together, like willingly and like driven, I guess, to do this, to be amongst people who believe the same way, it really does give you a sense of hope for the kids and this youth generation that they can't corrupt them all with their tactics and their tools. So it's nice to see that in this respect as well.
So in 24, you had 40,000 people in the arena. This year in 25, they had they had two conferences back to back, so they had 80,000 kids.
Wow.
So it's absolutely growing. And what's happening is it's a revival like we're not used to. The revival is the Holy Spirit of God moving in ways we can't imagine. For instance, the Muslims are coming to Jesus. And the way it's happening is they're waking up and having a vision or a dream of Jesus, and they're discovering that Jesus isn't just a prophet, that he is more than a prophet, and they're coming to Jesus. So it's an amazing thing of what's happening in society, in the cultures, and specifically among young people, and they're coming to Jesus. We had in California just a couple weeks ago, we had Baptized California. And in Huntington Beach, we had 14 to 24,000, I don't know how many thousands of people were baptized in one day, one Sunday here in California. And in Pirates Cove, which is where the first Jesus movement took place in the 70s. There was another 1,200 people who were baptized there. It's absolutely amazing what God is doing, and it's happening all across the United States. People are coming back to Jesus, back to God. And the reason they're doing that is they saw what happens. They saw the fruit of moving away from God, taking God out of our lives. And they're saying, we need God. We need Jesus because it is the words of Jesus which produce freedom, which takes the shackles off of our mind and brings us freedom. If you look at the history of divine liberation, there's nothing more dramatic than God taking his people out of slavery in Egypt. They were in slavery there for 400 years. To put that in perspective, next year we're celebrating 250 years
50.
here in the
Yeah.
United States, right? So that seems like an eternity, 250 years. Those documents were written so long ago, we can't even imagine that. Well, add another 150 years to that. That's how long the Israelites were in captivity in Egypt. And they were held captive through Pharaoh's uh, narrative of gods, the Egyptian gods, and that's how he's able to control the masses. So the first thing God has to do when he wants to free his people is he needs to show everyone, the Israelites included, because the Israelites had forgotten who God was. After 400 years of being indoctrinated and enslaved, they just knew the gods of Egypt. And the Bible says that God heard their cries. He didn't hear their prayers, he heard their cries. So they're in agony. And he realizes his people are in agony and he puts his plan into motion. And he goes and he first thing he does is he sends these 10 plagues. He doesn't send the 10 plagues because he's masochistic or he was going to punish all the Israelites and the Egyptians for getting him, manipulating his family. He sends them there to destroy the gods of Egypt. That's what those are for. And every single one just tears down these gods. And by tearing down the gods, he's freeing, taking the shackles off of the minds of his people.
Right.
And as a result of that, then they'll follow him into the wilderness and across the rivers and allow him to care for them.
Yeah,
And
I mean, for
that's
those
what he
who
does.
don't believe, with all of the references we have that there is tangible proof, evidence, if you will, for these stories that have taken place. I'm of Syrian descent. My father's from Syria, so the oldest country, one of the oldest countries around, the beginning of time, and so you have to know that these miracles we hear about, all the things that happen, and then even in this case with this in Egypt, what they did to those people. It's so funny to me, not funny in haha way, how everything has repeated itself. You see this now that those that were in captivity, even, from Hamas over the 265 days or so, it just repeats itself, larger scale, smaller scale, the Egyptian god, the oligarchs enslaving people and human trafficking, allowing it to happen by the millions across the world. I mean, there's variances of all these things, and just because it doesn't manifest itself in that particular way, right? What we know happened in the Bible and the stories that were related through others, it does happen throughout the world. And so I know your ministry, lends itself to people in need now. And I was looking through your website, and I did want to mention this to make sure we do get this out, because if you do go to drschuller.org, to his website, and we have that up, we have it all down there on the screen and it's in my descriptions. You can go to church online on Sunday. And I know a lot of people do this now, but if you're looking, or if you haven't been going and you feel like popping on to a new, possibility for a resource, you can go to Dr. Schuller's and Reverend Schuller's website here and get on that link and join. They also have a call monthly. Tell us a little bit. I'm curious about the call. What does that entail?
The call is our podcast, which we've been doing since 2009. And what we do is we once a month we have a guest, or sometimes we don't. We talk about different things, my wife and I, and then we put that on our podcast. And we've been doing that again since 2009. So we've been doing
And
it a long time.
they can also catch you on YouTube as well. So really, if you're
Yeah.
just looking for inspiration, because I did listen to you, and if you're, a lot of people are having down times, or they, back to the vaccines, they've been injured, or they're having PTSD from what happened to their families. I mean, this is all residual, issues and consequences of what they've done to our populations, in, certainly those 20 to 24 years. And a lot of people are really struggling with so many issues because of that and other things. We have our military to honor this weekend, and the PTSD in that arena is also, too great. It should be dealt with, or by those who are placing them in harm, but it's not. So we do have to bring you resources if you're looking for help or guidance, or just a good positive thought for the day. Maybe you had a bad day. Pop on his YouTube, by the way, if you have, because you can put on anything that he has on there, and it'll be uplifting, inspirational, positive messaging, instead of a Netflix movie that's, somebody gets kidnapped, and that whole that
Oh, same.
storyline played out 1,000 different ways, that they can. But it's real life too. Unfortunately, that's happening, and that's why we see that stuff too. So, let them know too. Are you going to be anywhere that they're going to see you? Do you have events coming up, or just the best way to connect that
Well,
you think with
if
you?
if you Google my name, Robert Schuller, it's going to be hard to find me because you'll find everything about my dad. My dad was extremely famous, and even though he's been dead for 10 years, almost everything that will come up on Google will still be my dad. And I jokingly say, at least my name isn't Elvis Presley. And
Right.
so, so you need to if you Google Robert Schuller Ministries, then most of the stuff that I do will come up.
And that's what I'm
And
looking at, Robert Schuller Ministries. And actually, that is all his handles: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, at Robert Schuller Ministries. And then it exits Robert A. Schuller. And then his website is drschuller.org. So check all of that out, because I'm sure that there's something that you will find, whether it's one of the books, whether it's the ministry, whether it's Sunday Church Online, if you can't get out for any reason whatsoever, or you just want to catch up on some inspiration for the week on the YouTube channel. There's so many resources that you can go to and reach for if you do need a little boost, right? So is there anything else? I think we could probably talk for a long time. I have just met
yeah,
you, but is there anything else you wanted to share?
so for a daily quick boost, go to Donna Schuller at Instagram. And that's my wife. And she does a live video every day. It's about a minute long. And she has different titles for, I think it's Miracle Monday, Thanksgiving Tuesday, or maybe it's Thursday. I can't remember what all they are, and Fearless Friday. And so that kind of sets the tone. And she has a ton of followers on there, and she's a wonderful communicator. And so I'll encourage you to do that as well. That's completely off topic, but if you're interested in my book, uh, God Always Wins, it's extremely enlightening in helping you understand how the agenda of the woke, how to conquer the agenda of the woke, how it all has to do with religion, and it is their religion of scientism. And again, scientism is using science to create and support their narrative and their agenda. And it is not has nothing to do with science. It's not true good science. And I could go on to explain
Right.
that. It may take another 5 minutes. But if you get the book, you'll discover that our freedom is found through Jesus Christ and his proclamations. Like when God shared himself with Moses, it was a burning bush, and he said, "I am." And we know that that was Jesus Christ speaking. How do we know that? Because in the Gospel of John, John says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth." That's Jesus. And if Jesus is the Word, then he is the words of God that speaks to us, and he continues to share with us who he is. So Moses got heard from the burning bush, I am. And then Jesus gives us the and each one of his Jesus's I am statements correlate with the plagues of Egypt, and also correlate, which in turn correlate with the scientific pantheon of the woke, and his I am statements defeat the gods of the woke, so that we are freed to be able to understand how to live a life full of joy and goodness, and not imprisoned by
Right.
the oligarchs, the technocrats, and the others whose desire it is to imprison.
Destroy.
So
Yeah.
those I am statements is I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life, I am the gate, I am the good shepherd, and so forth. And so through those things and through those statements and understanding what they mean and how they relate to us will truly provide our freedoms. So I encourage you to get the book, God Always Wins, Divine Liberation from the Gods of the Woke.
Wow. Yes, I agree 100%. And I always feel so. I've spoken with Pastor Jack Hibbs out there in California too before. And when when I talk to you and him and others in this realm, I always feel like, oh, I kind of feel like I didn't go to church. I'm not saying I did, so no fibbing here, but I feel kind of like I just got my nice inspiration for going into this certainly weekend, and the words delivered are beautiful, and the message that you bring with it also is just uniting for everybody and our kids especially. So we want to follow what you're doing, and I'm sure you'll be doing a lot more. It doesn't seem like you're a sit still kind of person. So we want to continue, learning from you, and we'll share your resources with everyone, we can whenever we can, so that hopefully if anybody needs the help or inspirations, they can find you and your wife, Donna, as well. We'll put that up as well. So just want to thank you for being on American Perspective today. And it was so lovely to meet you. And I hope to see you again soon.
Well, Noel, God is blessing you. And thank you again for allowing me to introduce myself to your congregation.
Of course, of course. Thank you. And you and your lovely wife and family have a beautiful Memorial weekend also, and enjoy that holiday. And we'll catch up with Dr. Schuller soon. And with that, we're going to actually talk about Memorial Weekend that we have coming up. I sit on the board of WritersUSA.net. It's an organization that's been around for a long time. In fact, this is our 19th year doing the annual Memorial Day flags for our fallen event. It's at the National Phoenix Memorial Cemetery, and there's only a few of them around the country, and we're really honored to have one here, actually in my neighborhood. And so this weekend, every weekend for 19 years, we all go out, and the guys, they bring their big motor homes. There's big tents set up. Of course, it's hot now, so I think we're going to hit 100 probably. So we have big tents for everyone. We have food out there for the weekend. It's a free event. We're on the corner in Phoenix, the Cave Creek area, just north of the 101. If you guys are out here and can join us or want to share this out, you can find links on my page at Patreon_Mom007. On my social media has our lovely, I love him, Buffalo. You'll see him online announcing this year's event, and then we go into showing you what it looks like from last year. We do a big dedication on Monday, on the holiday itself, on the 26th, from 6 to 8 a.m., where we are there with the community members who are going to visit their loved ones that day. And we have a singer, Madison Reed, a mom out here in Arizona. She's a Fountain Hill School Board member, very active in the community. She's actually performing the national anthem for us. She's an amazing musician. She's also going to sing some other lovely songs for us that morning on Monday. And we'll have some speakers. Sometimes our elected officials will drop in and address the audience, and you can meet them as well. And of course, we have the families of our fallen heroes who are there specifically to, just pay their respects to their loved ones. My uncle and actually a second uncle are laid to rest at that cemetery. And so I just encourage you, whether you come out with us this weekend for WritersUSA.net's Memorial Weekend Flags for Our Fallen event, or whether you choose another way to honor our veterans, our heroes, our military men and women who have given their lives and much more sometimes to protect us all through the years and sacrificed for us, that you just find a way to pay tribute to them this weekend, every day if you can. Always thank a veteran when you see them, because they have done so much for you and they didn't know you. But we do have a little video. This is a little over 2 minutes. I'm gonna let this play. This is what's happening this weekend here in Phoenix at the National Memorial Cemetery. So let's see what's happening.
Howdy, y'all. Right now is the time of the year for the Memorial Day event. That's right, Writers USA's Flags for Our Fallen will be on this corner for Memorial Days. We want you to come out and sponsor a flag for a deceased veteran when we take this empty lot and turn it into this.
Those flags that you saw posted along Cave Creek Road, they're being put up right now. There's 500 US flags. We put on 10-foot poles every year. We have volunteers that come out and help us, and they are hammering them in right now as we speak. I'm going to go out there. We'll be out there all weekend. Like I said, we stay out there all weekend. We actually have silk flowers that we bring out for families, and that they can have to go into to the cemetery to visit their loved ones. We take donations. We don't charge for that or anything that we're doing this weekend, and we just want to see people come out and just pay the respects, really. So we hope to see you, WritersUSA.net. If you do want to make a donation, we do have that available. There's a link on the site, and if not, I just wish you guys a great Memorial Weekend. So whatever you do. And then we also, I wanted to mention, I'm going to do a little quick, I talk about this, my chronic silver, and I've been using it for, I don't know, 6 months now or so. And you know what, let me see if I have that, because I find that it's very helpful. We hear about supplements a lot, and you do have to try them for yourself. But this one seems to work for me. Mostly, I'm talking a lot about this nasal spray because I've never used them before. Now, here in Arizona, we have a ton of allergy situations, but my chronic silver, it's one of the best all-natural alternatives against modern-day superbugs. And before 1923, silver was most prescribed antibiotic in the world. Before 1965, there were almost 5,000 references to silver in the journals of medicine, which they do not reference these days. It's one of the most effective against bacteria, fungus, and viruses, as it has been throughout history, and why scientists are looking to silver as the preferred alternative against new superbugs that we're hearing more about. My chronic silver is positioned to be the recommended product to fight these battles and has the latest cutting-edge technological and advancement in the field. Being the only organically stabilized silver product on the planet, it means that it far surpasses the lesser types of colloidal, ionic, and nano silvers you may have heard about. Also effective, just in different ways. So do your research. The key to natural health is mycronic silver's ability to work with your immune system without harming the good bacteria in your body. Mycronic silver does this by staying active in your body for up to 10 hours, unlike other silvers. So visit mychronicsilver.net. You can read what their customers have to say about their amazing experiences with Mycronic Silver incredible products. And I did want to mention that. I always try to because it's about getting healthy all the way around. We just talked about, through your faith, whether you do attend a church online, in person, whatever your persuasion is religiously, if you have a belief that you follow, it's important to, maintain that. You do that by attending church, by fellowshipping with others, and it also, the health inside is as important. So some of these products that I've been mentioning on the show the last few months, I just recommend that you look into them for yourself and see if there's ways that you can help yourself, mentally, spiritually, internally, and really holistically, so that if we all get healthy in all the ways, it makes for a healthier environment for us all, I think, across the board. So that's our goal. So we always wrap up our Fridays. Again, we said at the beginning of the show what a busy week America has had. President Trump has been jet setting around between, Abu Dhabi, all the countries, really. He started a big tour over there, ended up back in America. He's been brokering deals left and right with the countries who do want to work things out with us on the front side. And so Carolyn Levitt will give us our MAGA Minute, and we'll see all the other things that he's been up to for the week.
President Trump has been on a historic tour of the Middle East this week. We're coming to you live for the MAGA Minute from Abu Dhabi, so let's roll through it. This week in the Middle East, President Trump marked a new era of American foreign policy, encouraging peace and prosperity through strength. President Trump announced a $600 billion commitment in investments from the country of Saudi Arabia, which will mean hundreds of thousands of new jobs in your communities. In Qatar, the president signed a historic agreement to generate an economic exchange with the United States worth $1.2 trillion. And the dealmaker-in-chief also announced a historic sale of American-made Boeing aircrafts and American-made GE Aerospace engines to Qatari Airways. Finishing off the trip in the United Arab Emirates, the president announced more than $200 billion in commercial deals between the United States and the UAE. The president this week also signed a historic initial trade deal with China to reduce tariffs and to continue discussing opening Chinese markets to American-made products and goods. President Trump also secured a ceasefire between India and Pakistan, literally preventing a nuclear war. President Trump and Special Envoy Witkoff secured the release of American Eden Alexander, the last remaining American hostage in Gaza, after 584 days in Hamas captivity. And on the home front, President Trump signed an executive order putting American patients first to lower your drug prices and to end foreign nations paying cheaper money for drugs and ripping off American pharmaceutical innovation. Inflation fell to its lowest level in more than 4 years this past month. It was certainly a packed week, and we look forward to working with Congress next week to pass the One Big Beautiful Bill, which means the greatest tax cuts in history. We'll see you back in Washington for next week's MAGA Minute.
Well, as you know, the One Big Beautiful Bill did pass Congress, I think yesterday or in the morning or the day before, I think last night. So they're right on track. I mean, everything he says he's going to do, he does, and then some. And it's good to see that the ball keeps moving forward in a positive direction with all of the areas he's working towards, bringing peace to other countries in the middle of their hot wars, to cool that down and try to get peace. I guess worldwide is what President Trump is going for, if you hadn't noticed. And you can criticize all you want, as I hear online. People do criticize to me all the time. But somebody did mention the other day, we had a little dialogue. It was actually very polite. And bottom line was, we're going to see how it works out in the end with the history books. You can say what you will now. You can think he's not doing anything because you don't hear all the facts and just choose to believe that what you hear can't be true. Because, I mean, who can really put all this together as President Trump has so quickly and efficiently, right? and for the benefit of so many people. It seems unlikely that a regular person could do that. But I mean, he did survive a couple bullets in front of us. So, some might say he's more suited for that job than anyone else could be, and he's getting it done. But we're thankful. Thank you, Carolyn Lovett. We love the MAGA Minute and hearing everything we've missed for the week. So we will look forward to hearing that again next week and seeing all the accomplishments for America. I want to thank you all for tuning in today to American Perspective this afternoon. If you can't be here now, hopefully you'll catch the show later. And also want to thank Robert Johnson with JData17. You can find his channels on Facebook and X at JData17. Catch all his live streams, Arizona Live Data, Chula Vista and San Diego Live Data. We're live streaming this weekend, as well as many other channels. So you're going to want to check out that and find a live stream, because he brings you all the information from California and other states in real time that you may or may not get to hear about, or meetings that you don't get to, utility companies, city council meetings, the police departments, their meetings. So really interesting informational things in your area. So check that out. And also, of course, to learn more about Dr. Schuller, to find the resources, some of the links we talked about today, you're going to check out my descriptions when you follow, like, and share me at Patriot_Mom007 on Facebook, Instagram, Truth and Rumble, and YouTube, and on X at PMom007. So we didn't touch on it as much today, other than getting involved locally with your community. Find your tribe or your church that you can, lean on for the support you may need these days. If you are a veteran this weekend and you struggle with anything, there are so many organizations that are willing to help you. Veterans Affinity is out here in Arizona. I want to highlight them, as well as our writersusa.net, of course, Wounded Warriors, and so many other valuable organizations that you can connect with for yourself or a family member who may need help or support in one way or another. Veterans Legal Services, I talked about them earlier, also valuable. And so you just need to know what is happening out there. You need to get involved and get educated, because if you don't know the challenges that are in your community, then you'll never be able to positively help affect or correct them to improve the future for your family, your friends, of course, your city, state, and ultimately, we'd like to see our country fixed as a whole. We all need to work together. Voting is always happening. Elections matter. We don't want to forget, you got to vote your conscience, but you also have to vote in favor of your family's long-term safety. You have to remember the officials, like I highlighted today, Senator Whitehouse, whose wives or family members are receiving payouts from our previous administrations to the tune of millions, with no accountability, receipts to speak of, putting them in their private bank accounts, no doubt. You might want to vote them out, because you're paying their salaries and they're scooping extra money on the backside. It's not really great. So remember who you do vote for. It does matter. At the end of the day, we are going to be back next Friday. We've got Dr. Khanna. We mentioned him a couple weeks ago when Gucci Granny was on the show in Kentucky. She hosted 100 Days for Trump's Triumphs. He's going to be an upcoming speaker at another event they're doing on that side of the nation. And he's going to be our guest next week. So we're going to learn some things from him. We hope to see you this weekend here in Phoenix at the National Phoenix, the Veterans Memorial Cemetery it's Cave Creek and Pinnacle Peak Roads. You'll see 500 flags on the street. If you guys are in Arizona, you can't miss us. Stop on the corner, say hello. Join us Monday morning from 6 to 8 a.m. with Madison Reed and our community members to honor all of those who have dedicated their lives to protect us and who are now, we can pay respects to this weekend and hopefully every day. But have a great weekend. Have a wonderful Memorial holiday. Please thank a veteran if you see them. And I do look forward to seeing you next week on American Perspective right here with Patriot Mom 007. And with that, Robert can take us out.